Wow, what a day today. I got to tell you, today was by far the best day making content for my YouTube channel. Hands down, period, by a mile. And I'm going to get to that in just a bit. But first, I want to thank every one of my 51 subscribers. I know there's other channels out there that are a lot bigger, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of subscribers. I get it. But every one of my subscribers means something to me. And I say that with all sincerity. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I really, really appreciate it. Now, if you like what I do and you're not subscribed and you like my content, hit that subscribe button. It'll mean a lot to me. I sincerely mean that. Hit that subscribe button. I would so much appreciate it. Now, if you like my content, that is, and you're a good person, right? Hey, come on, right? No, but seriously, today was absolutely awesome. I had such a great day today making content. So last week, my wife and I, we were talking, okay? And she said, okay, so where are you going next, right? Because I've been to Tortilla Flat. I've been up to Pine. I've been to Whitman, Arizona, Winkelmann, Arizona, and Jerome. So several of these small towns, I've been driving all over the place and just and talking to people, talking to locals. And I'm telling you what, when you talk to a local, that's where you get the real information. Okay. So many of these people that do like travel blogs and things like that, they go to Google and they Google the town and they read about it. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to talk about that in my next video. I'm going to talk about this haunted hotel, or I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this art gallery, or I'm going to talk about whatever, right? The view of the town, whatever it is. I'm going to talk about the bridge up in Winkelmann, right? And I'll be honest with you, that's what drew me up there. You gotta go up there with some sort of foundation, right? You can't just go into a small town and know nothing about the place. So yeah, you got to Google, but in order to get the truth, to get the real story, to get the real history of these little towns, you got to talk to the locals and you got to talk to people that have lived there for several years, even maybe their lifetime, right? That's where you're going to get that great information. You're not going to get that on Google. You're not going to get that on Wikipedia. You're not going to get that from other YouTubers because they're just pulling their information from YouTube and from, or not from YouTube, but from Google and Wikipedia and things like that. Okay, so you got to talk to the real people. All right, so last week I went up to Winkelmann, and I'm going to get to today soon. I promise you, because it was next level stuff. It was unbelievable. Okay, so last week I go to Winkelmann and I go up to visit the Winkelmann Bridge, and I want to visit. I've heard, about Hayden, the neighboring town, being a ghost town. I've heard about Winkelmann. It's a town that's dying. Okay, people, I think at least 6 people net per year leave Winkelmann. And that's not, I'm talking about leave, move out. That's not talking about the people that are dying off or anything like that. 6 people get out of Dodge. And so the population is decreasing over 2% every year. It's at 284 people. This town used to be booming. Winkelmann and Hayden next door used to be booming. It's a town that's dying, right? So I wanted to go up to Winkelmann. I wanted to find out why the town is dying, for one. And I found out that it's mostly economic and lack of education. So, you can watch my video if you want to get more detail on that. But so I wanted to go up and I wanted to visit this bridge because the Winkelmann Bridge up there is a bridge that's, I don't know, it's 106 years old. And it's only one of 2 left in Arizona that it's a concrete arch bridge. And it's a phenomenal thing. It's really cool. And there's a ton of history. And I wanted to go up, and my daughter's an architecture student, so I wanted to take some pictures of this bridge, and I wanted to show it to her. And I was just excited about it. So I'm out filming on the bridge, and here this man, Jesse, comes riding by on his electric bicycle, and he says, "Hey, are you enjoying the bridge?" Because he saw me with my camera gear and all that type of stuff. And I said, I'm sorry. He goes, are you enjoying the bridge? I said, yeah, actually. I said, this is one of the main reasons why I came up here. Are you local? Right? Do you live here? He says, absolutely, lived here for over 60 years. This is the man I'm going to talk to. This is the guy that knows the history of not only Winkelmann, but the bridge itself. And so he told me all kinds of wild stuff about that bridge. It was almost like, if this bridge could talk type of thing. And he told me about people like up in Winkelmann. It's a mining town, so the men are men, right? And so you look at them sideways. They're going to challenge you to a fight. Where are they going to fight you? They're going to take you down to the bridge, and that's where you're going to fight. If you're a man, they're going to take you down to the bridge and they're going to fight you. If you back down, your life is history in that town. That's it. You got to take them on. So you look at some guy funny, or he thinks you do, he challenges you to a fight, you go down to the bridge and you just beat the hell out of each other. In fact, Jesse told me, he said if it came down to a fight or sex, he's taking a fight every day because there's nothing like a good fist crack to the face. A good fist crack to the ribs. That's what he told me. So I'm learning about this. I'm learning about this town. They take, their justice into their own hands. In fact, the women up there, okay, this went on for on and on and on, and he tells me it still goes on today, but the women up there, if they find out that their man cheated on, because these manly men, right? They hook up with another lady in town or whatever. If the women find out that their husbands or boyfriends are cheating on them, guess what? They go down to the bridge, on the north end of the bridge, and they hang out on a wooden wall down there. And that is letting the rest of the men in the town know that they're open for business. This goes on in Winkelmann. You can't find that by Googling it. You can't find that information by going to Wikipedia. You're never going to find it. You got to talk to the locals. In fact, he wouldn't tell me this on camera, but Jesse told me that the town has actually lynched people. People got hanged off the Winkelmann Bridge. So if somebody in town was caught being a pedophile, or a child abuser, or even a wife abuser for beating up your wife or whatever, the town didn't wait for the police and the courts to act. They grabbed the guy, wrapped a noose around his neck, and off the bridge he went. Again, I can't verify this information. I can't verify it. I don't have any news articles. I don't have any, pictures of this. But this man lived it. And he said it with conviction. He wasn't making stuff up. He was like, let me tell you, there is a dark, dark history of this bridge. And that fascinated me. So I started, going around the bridge and taking pictures and taking video underneath the bridge. And I came across a grave under the bridge. You're not going to read that on Google. You're not going to see that. And that's what it takes to do these videos. And so today, I thought, how am I going to get more excited about a video when I talk to Jesse on the Winkelmann Bridge, and he's telling me all this dark history about the nightclub and the hangings and the fistfights. In fact, people that got in fistfights, when a man challenged another man to a fist fight, they went down onto the bridge, they beat the hell out of each other, and the rest of the people up at the dance hall or the nightclub up there that looked over the bridge, they would sit on the back balcony, the back deck, and bet. They would make bets on who they thought was going to win the fight. I mean, this is like every which way you can type of stuff, right? With Philo Beto. Those who, are my age, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know who Philo Beto is, it was Clint Eastwood. Every which way you can, and any which way but loose, or something like that. I don't know, whatever it was. But anyway, Right Turn Clyde, that guy, right? He was a fighter, and he would go around town and he would fight, and he would go across the country. And they would have these illegal fights, and people would come and bet on it. So that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of Philo Beto. Anyway, so I'm thinking to myself, how in the world am I going to get a better local, get a better video, get better information. I'm going up to Williams, Arizona, way up in the Pines. It's about 40 miles west of Flagstaff, right on the 40. Actually, Route 66 runs right, and I'm a big fan, right behind me. I'm a huge fan of Route 66. So I go up to this town, and one of the things I love trains. I love to ride trains. I love to watch trains. I love to video trains. You name it. Trains. I'm just fascinated by trains. So I said, I'm going to go up and I'm going to check out and do some video of the Grand Canyon Railway right in Williams. That's where the Grand Canyon Railway is located. The train depot is right there. And so every day, thousands of people get on the Grand Canyon Railway and take that train up to the south rim of the Grand Canyon. It's about a 2.5 hour trip. I've done it 3 times. And if you ever get the chance to do it, do it. It's awesome. It's so much fun. You get up to the Grand Canyon, and then you got about 3.5 hours to fart around up there on the rim, grab an ice cream cone, go hike, do whatever you want to do, and then you come back, get back on the train, 2.5 hours back to Williams. Awesome, awesome day. It's amazing. So if you're local in Arizona, or if you're planning on making a vacation out here, go to Williams, okay? Ride the train, but don't stop there, because what I'm about to tell you is fascinating. And I'm going to have this video. I don't even have the video off my phone yet, downloaded onto my computer yet. All the raw video is still, and pictures are still on my camera. So I'm going to be working on this video over the next couple days. But anyway, what I'm about to tell you, it blew my mind. And maybe this is something that you knew about Williams. I didn't. So while I'm filming the train, I decided to head over, and I was going to start filming some of the old bordellos, right? The red light district, and then I was going to film some of the old gas stations, because up there on Route 66, that was a thing, right? And by the way, if I ever had a chance, let me see, I got a comment in the comment section. I'm rambling on here. Oh, it's my brother. Welcome to the show, Dave. So I'm glad you're here. Didn't know you were following the channel. How cool is that? So I go up. So one of the things, if I could go back in time, I would go back in time to when Route 66 was in its heyday. And there would be nothing like traveling from Chicago to LA, just taking Route 66 the whole way and going through all these little towns and this type of stuff. So my brother and I have actually had the opportunity to cross the country several times by car. And, doing it, I don't want to speak for him, but in doing it, I fell in love with these small towns that you go through. You get off the interstate and you go jump on a 2-lane highway and you go through all of these little towns and you meet the most fascinating people. And they're the nicest people. And they just love life. They're not living on top of each other like somewhere in LA or Chicago or New York City, right? They're not cranky. They don't hate life. They love life. They've got room, and they've got, acreage and maybe a little homestead or whatever, and they just love life, and they're nice people. And so I fell in love with small town America. But anyway, so going back to this, so I'm taking pictures of some of these old gas stations, and I'm taking pictures of some of the old hotels. And here comes a man walking down the sidewalk. He notices my gear. So this is a thing I'm starting to realize, right? So if you got your gear on you and it looks like you're a tourist, people, they kind of come over to you, like a local will come over to you. So this local guy, he comes over to me and he says, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just filming Williams, Arizona. I was over at the train, watched the train leave this morning. And by the way, I was up at 4:00 in the morning so that I could drive to Williams and catch the train. But hey, it is what it is. But anyway, so I said, I was here filming the train. I'm going to film some of the old gas stations and things like that. He says, well, I work at the bike shop up the street. He goes, if you want to stop by, stop by. I said, okay. He goes, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard about the hidden tunnels in Williams, Arizona? I said, the hidden tunnels? He said, yeah. Have you ever heard about the hidden tunnels? I said, no, not at all. He said, half of this town underneath, in between the two split Route 66s, right? Like right along Route 66, it's split one way. And there's bars and restaurants and small little hotels and those old gas stations and everything. He said there are tunnels that were dug underneath this city by Chinese immigrants back in the 1800s. I said, you got to be kidding me. How come I don't know about this? He said, it's part of this history that nobody really talks about. I said, all right. I said, so who do I talk to about it? He says, I don't know. He goes, maybe the owner of the bike shop, he might want to talk to you. He goes, but he's not a real friendly guy or whatever he was saying. So I said, okay. So this interests me. This got my interests up right now. Now I'm like, okay, I got to find more out about this. So I started talking to other people. I started talking to people that are out sitting on the bench, walking their dogs. I actually went over to the grocery store because locals are shopping at the grocery store. And so I started asking them, who can I talk to about the tunnels? And so they said, well, this gentleman over at that bar on the corner, and I'm not going to give any names, this guy over at this bar on the corner, you want to go talk to him because underneath his bar, the tunnels still exist. Because what happened was the city came in and they started filling these tunnels with like huge concrete and stuff like, blocks of concrete or stone or whatever, because they're worried about the collapse, right? They're worried about the earth collapsing and the buildings collapsing into these tunnels. So the tunnels are real. At first I wasn't sure if I believed this guy, but I start talking to people and they're like, no, the tunnels are real. Go talk to this bar guy, this guy that owns the bar. He has tunnels in his basement. So I went over there and I talked to him. He didn't want to be on video and he was not interested in allowing me into the basement to see his tunnels, because the tunnels, they don't go all the way. They're not all attached anymore. In fact, some people, they question whether the tunnels were ever really attached in the first place. But anyway, so he told me that they were. He said that the tunnels were all attached before the roads came in, before all this type of stuff. And I said, okay, so what are the tunnels for? I'm curious. What are the tunnels for? And so I thought maybe it was like, slave trade or something like that. Or I didn't know. I have no idea why a city would have a bunch of tunnels underneath it. He said, no, they were actually built by the Chinese immigrants who came to build the railroad. So the people up in Arizona, up there in northern Arizona, the locals, they didn't like the Chinese immigrants. Okay, for one reason, they were building the railroads and taking jobs away from, the local people. So they didn't like that, and they were probably maybe a little bit. I don't want to use the word racist, but they probably didn't like them because they were Chinese, Asian, whatever, right? So you got part of that. So you got that, and so I found that interesting, and so I start talking to him, and he tells me that the Asian immigrants built these tunnels because back in the 1800s, when they were building the railroads, they weren't allowed to be seen on the streets of Williams. It was against the law. Someone would probably shoot them, right? Because the bar that I was standing in talking to this man, there were shootouts in that bar. That bar has the longest existed liquor license in Arizona history, right? So their liquor license goes all the way back to 1933 after Prohibition had been ended, okay? So there were shootouts in that bar, like Wild West shootouts. And so if a Chinese was to go out onto the streets, especially in broad daylight, someone's going to knock him off. Someone's going to shoot him, right? It's over for the guy. So what they did was they lived in the basements, in the foundations of these buildings, and they started to tunnel. They started building tunnels from one basement to another basement. And so they were all night long, pickaxe, right? And hammers and whatever they had to do. They were built, and these tunnels were, and I have video of it because I'll get to that in a minute, but these tunnels were 8 foot round, 8 foot in diameter. Unbelievable. All the way from connecting from one building to another, one basement to another. And so what the Chinese did, and they have history of this, they have the vials what the Chinese did was they opened up opium dens in the basements, in these tunnels. They used them as opium dens. And so people, the regular people, would sneak off and go down into these tunnels that the Chinese built and I don't know, smoke opium. I don't know what you do with opium, but they would, it was like a liquid because that's what they found. They found all these vials with Chinese writing on them that were for opium. And so they had this intricate tunnel. So what happened was, this is amazing. So the people that built these tunnels, there's and I got a video of this too, and I'll have this out in a little bit, but there are these, there's a cemetery on the west side of Williams going towards the 40 there. And there's a section of that cemetery that has Asians buried in it. And they have Chinese writing on these little stones. Some of them are just old wooden crosses or just like a slab that you can't even read anymore. But some of these headstones and everything are from like 1880 when the person died, 1889, whatever, and it has the Chinese writing and it has then their name in English. So these Chinese people that were building these tunnels and building the railroad died in that town. I don't know if they were killed. I don't know how they died, why they died, but they're all buried in a separate part of the cemetery. They weren't even allowed to be mixed in with the regulars up there. Unbelievable stuff. So anyway, so he wouldn't show me his tunnels. In fact, he said that his tunnels were closed up. I know by talking to other people later that that's not true. He just doesn't want people going into the tunnels in his basement. Cool. Perfect. I get it. So I left his place and I was fascinated by his telling me his story about the Chinese being buried up in that cemetery. So I walked all the way out to that cemetery and I did find one Chinese grave. Everything is so overgrown, it's not taken care of. And you figure they were buried, 120, 140 years ago, and no one's taken care of this burial lot. So it was very difficult to find things, but I did find one Chinese grave, and I believe the girl was buried. I think it was a female name, buried in like 1885, right? Crazy stuff. So what happened was, after the Chinese left, these tunnels were still underneath the town. And so when 1920 came around and the federal government instituted prohibition and illegalized alcohol nationwide, it was now a criminal activity to either have alcohol or sell alcohol, right? Well, the town of Williams, they said, hey, we got tunnels. We got tunnels that the authorities don't know about. Nobody knows about these. So guess what? Those tunnels became speakeasies. And then the speakeasies, along with that, with the illegal drinking down in these tunnels, 30 feet in the ground, opened up bordellos. So you had prostitution in these tunnels, you had illegal drinking in these tunnels, and years before that, you had opium dens in these tunnels. Fascinating stuff. So I kept going around and going in each business, and I would ask the people in the business, hey, are there tunnels under your building? Most of them played dumb. Huh? Tunnels? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything about it. Finally, I walked in to one of these restaurants and I said, are there tunnels under your, I'm here. I have a YouTube channel. I found out about these tunnels. I would love to see one of these tunnels. And the waitress said, you're not going to get it here. No one, don't waste your time here. The owner's never going to let you in the basement, never going to let you. But if you go up to this other establishment, you might have a shot, right? So I was persistent. I would just kept hitting places and talking to people and asking questions. So I go up to this next spot. I walk in, the bartender's right there. And I said, hey, any chance I can see your tunnels? I want to video your tunnels. She says, well, my name's Rebel. That's her real name. And my boss is not here today. So if you want to go down and check out the tunnels on your own, I'm not going with you. and you can go at your own risk. But if you want to go down and check it out, go down the steps and underneath and behind the steps, and you'll see the tunnel. Well, she did show me how to get down there, because literally there is a trap door behind the bar that no one would ever know about. No one would ever know that it's there. So she lifts this trap door, and then there's a landing about 4 or 5 feet that you kind of got to jump into this hole, and you land on this landing. Then you go down these crickety steps, and behind these crickety steps, there it is. I got to not only see one of these Chinese-made tunnels that used to be an opium den and a speakeasy, I got to go in it. This tunnel was probably before, because what happens is they never filled theirs in. In fact, I don't know if the city, I don't even know if they know it's there, because the city went and filled all these in, but I don't know if the city knows it's there. And I think some of these people, they want them protected. They don't want them filled in. So I went in, it was probably 60 feet long underneath, and it probably went the whole length of their establishment. And then once it got to the road to another property is where it was filled in. So I went in there. It was damp, pitch black, spider webs everywhere, right? I get creeped out by spider webs. When you mix dampness with dark, you're probably going to get a black widow in there, right? And I'm not really big on that. So when I first started walking in, I was getting a little bit of spider webs in the face. And then I got up and there was a ton of spider webs. And I was, I'm not going to do that. But I went in about 20 feet of the 60 feet. Unfortunately, I didn't have a super bright light with me, so I couldn't really blast light in there to see exactly how deep it was. But it went way back there. And like I said, it went from about the main opening was probably 8 feet in diameter. And then the further I walked back, it kind of got small, maybe down to 5 feet tall. And then it stayed that all the way out. So the main tunnels were probably 5 feet, because I imagine, not to be, stereotypical, but Asians weren't that tall. Chinese weren't that tall. So they probably were able to walk at least a little hunched over or whatever. They were able to walk through those tunnels at 5 feet. So I would imagine the tunnel system was probably 5 feet. And then when they got into the main rooms where the opium dens were, they probably dug them out bigger so that more people could fit in there or whatever. It was easier to get in and out. I don't know. Who knows? That's all just conjecture. I have no idea. But it was unbelievable. Oh, Sharon Hillfire says, love your shows. Thank you very much, Sharon. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Very, very kind of you. So I was blown away by it. Like here, I didn't even know these tunnels existed. First of all, yesterday, I had no idea. This morning, I find out about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning that these tunnels exist, but it's unlikely you'll ever see one. And then by 2:30 in the afternoon, I'm climbing in one and videotaping it because I talked to the locals. That's what you got to do. In order to find out the real history of these little towns, again, you can't go to Google. You can't go to Wikipedia. You got to go to the source. You got to talk to the people. If I would never have talked to that gentleman at the bike shop, I would have never, ever known about these tunnels. If I would have never talked to Jesse about the Winkelmann Bridge, I wouldn't have known that people were hanged off the Winkelmann Bridge. I wouldn't have known that women prostitute themselves. In fact, he told me, he said, if you're going to go across the bridge to the Gila or to the Pinal County side, the southern side of the bridge, he said, don't go very far. He goes, maybe 100 feet or so past, but don't go very far because about a quarter mile up is an old abandoned motel, right? These are all dirt roads up there. It's an old abandoned motel back from like, I would say probably 1930, maybe 1920. And it was a place where horse and carriages went. And so he tells me about this hotel. I'm like, well, why don't you want me to go there? I want to check it out. He said, because it's filled with violent, homeless meth heads. I said, why doesn't anybody take care of it? He said, who's going to take care of it? He said, this is the Wild West out here. So one of my goals is to get a drone. I want to get a drone. and I want to fly a drone over that homeless hotel, and I want to zoom in and I want to find out what's going on there, because I'm not going to go there by myself. No way am I going to do that. So anyway, so I just had just an amazing day today, going up to kind of do, explore Williams, Arizona. In fact, if my brother's still on, he and I and his family, my family, we went to Williams after the Grand Canyon, and we actually ate lunch at one of the saloons that was adjacent to the one that I went into with the tunnels. Now, the one that we ate at was the one that wasn't willing to show me what was under their basement. My brother says, yeah, I'll go with. Yeah, I'm telling you, let's do it. All we got to do is pack the heat and take a drone, and I want to check it out, because I looked on Google Earth and I found the old motel. It's one of those long, skinny motels, right, with the doors in the front, but the whole thing is just encapsulated in trees. So you can't really, you would never know it unless you're looking for it. You would never know it's there. Again, because I talked to a local, he told me it was there. I was able to go to Google Earth and find it. So it's about a quarter mile on the south end of the Winkelmann Bridge. You can Google it. You can find it. And I zoomed in on Google Earth, and there's dumpsters all around with garbage everywhere. You can tell that there are people there. There's people there. So I want to get a drone. I want to get one of those drones that are kind of the small ones, like the minis, right? Under 250 grams. So I don't have to license it with the federal government and all that crap. So I want to fly it out there, and they're real quiet too. I want to fly it out there, maybe 300-400 feet in the air. And I just want to zoom. I just want to find out what's going on there, because that's crazy. That's crazy that it's 2022 and there are violent, homeless meth heads with guns protecting an old abandoned motel in the middle of the desert. It just blows, but it fascinates me. It blows my mind, but it fascinates me. But I would love to check that out. So anyway, I just wanted to come on live to talk about this. I don't do lives very often on this channel. This is, in fact, I think my second one. But I went up to Williams, and I had such a fascinating time. Again, going up to maybe look at trains and old gas stations, and you hear all the stories about the town being haunted, just like Jerome and all that type of stuff. I don't get into that. Not into the supernatural hauntings and stuff like that. And I talk to a local, and I find out about these tunnels, right? And there's all kinds of rumors about tunnels being under DC and tunnels being under the Denver airport and all this type of stuff. Most of it's nonsense. I'm sure there's tunnels under DC for safety reasons and stuff. But this town, I was in the tunnel. I was in it. And people that have gone in there, that like the property owners and stuff, like I said, they go in there and they started digging around and stuff like that, and they found thousands of vials of opium. Insane, with Chinese writing on it. And they know that the Chinese people were not allowed to live on the streets. They weren't allowed to be up in the streets seen in public, so they lived in the basements, and they dug tunnels to each other. Unbelievable. So I'm not sure where I'm going to go next. I'm thinking about either Springerville, maybe going back to Winkelmann and doing a little bit more history, a little bit, finding a couple more local people that may or may not be willing to talk. I don't know. It's kind of a crazy place up there, but I do want to go check out that motel. I want to go to Springerville because there's a lot of history there. I got to go to Tombstone. I got a friend of mine that wants to come in from Colorado. He wants to go to Tombstone and make a video with me because he's fascinated with Wyatt Earp and all this stuff. So I do want to go to Tombstone. I want to go south of Tombstone to Bisbee. So there's a lot of different places that I want to go to. Some places I've been before, some places I haven't been before. And I've just recently kind of caught this bug of this like late 1800s, early 1900 history that's gone on in Arizona. In fact, I learned this today too about Arizona. So Arizona didn't get its statehood till 1912. They were applying for statehood back in like 1889 or something like that. And the federal government said, no way, no thanks. You people are insane out there. No thanks. There was a war between two families from Holbrook and from Winslow. And what they did, they were like gangsters back in the day, back in, I don't know, late 1800s. We had a lot of influx of Mormons come into Arizona. I'm finding all this out. So all these Mormons came down from Salt Lake. They were sent by Brigham Young to come down and make settlements here in northern Arizona and stuff like that. And there still are a lot of Mormons there. But back in the 1800s, when these Mormons were coming in, they were pretty well-to-do. So they had a lot of horses and cattle and stuff like that. So this big family from Winslow and this big family from Holbrook started stealing the cattle and the horses and all this other stuff from the Mormons, because the Mormons, again, were pretty well-to-do. The northern Arizonans were not. Well, it got to a point where these two families started demanding that the horses go to their family. No, the horses go to my family. No, the horses go to... And so they got into this massive war, and this war was brutal. Brutal. In fact, most people don't know about it. I forget what it was called, Pleasant Valley War or something like that. I'll find out, and I'll put it in the description below. But this war went on, and it was just massive. And the U.S. government knew about it. They didn't want to get involved with it because Arizona wasn't part of the United States. It was still part of Mexico at the time. And they said, you guys are too nutty out there. We don't want you to be part of the United States. So it took until 1912. So, probably 23 years of petitioning the government trying to get statehood in the United States, 23 years. And finally, the government said that's fine, but Arizona was the true Wild West. It was the Wild West. I mean, people talk about Kansas and Texas has their stories, and New Mexico, that type of stuff. I get it. But Arizona, when the government says thanks, but no thanks, you guys are nuts. We're not interested. That tells me that Arizona has some pretty radical history. So I just, I've lived here for 17 years, going on 18 years now, and I never really got into the history until I started visiting these small towns, and I was fascinated. You walk into, there's a bar up in Prescott, up in Whiskey Row, it's called. You walk into Prescott in Whiskey Row, and there's a bar there, and you find out that Big Nose Kate's grave is up there. And you're like, what is Big Nose Kate doing up here when she was married to Doc Hollywood back in Tombstone, right? Well, like, what's going on here? But yeah, everybody got out of Tombstone. This is too nutty for us. And so Big Nose Kate, she boogied up to Prescott, and that's where she died. That's where she spent the rest of her life and died up there. So you start thinking like, wow, Prescott, this is kind of cool. So you start learning about different things that took place, and that's why I want to go out to Springerville too, because one of the men that was enemies of the Earps back in the day, back in the OK Corral, right? They had this big gun battle down in the OK. Everybody knows about that, but a lot of people died too. One of the survivors, he boogied out of town and he made his way into Springerville. Well, he had nothing. His family was dead. He had nothing but probably the clothes that he rolled into town with. And so what did he do? He got involved in stealing cattle too. Well, there was a sheriff up there that was like, yeah, Doc, what did I say? Doc Hollywood. Doc Holliday. Whoops. Anyway, so there was a sheriff up there that was not a real strong sheriff, and people were tired of people like this guy coming up from Tombstone, and they were tired of people coming out of these different places, coming into their town and just committing crimes and stealing their cattle. Right? Cattle was their form of money, and so this sheriff said, "All right, that's enough. That's enough. I've had enough." And he took the law into his own hands and he killed the man. So this guy, he didn't have much luck in Tombstone, and he certainly ran out of luck in Springerville. But I want to go up and I want to talk to the locals up there, and I want to find out the real story. I want to find out the real history of Springerville and learn more about this story. So anyway, that's all I got. It's about 8:10. Dave, thanks for being here. Sharon, thanks for being here as well. Anybody that's watched this, thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button. It really, it just motivates me to continue doing this type of stuff. And, it's a lot of time and a lot of work. I love it. I'm passionate about it. And so that's not going to change. But a little encouragement when you subscribe means a lot. So anyway, you guys have a great night. And don't forget, get off the freeway, get off the interstates, and go enjoy small town America. Take care, guys.